goes up a little more.
All right, moving on. Some surprising news out of Carolina yesterday. It seems Cam Newton's shoulder injury is worse than originally suspected. Cam was hampered by it most of the year. Panthers owner David Tepper said the team might take drastic steps for his long-term future. Tepper isn't ruling out Newton missing the entire season, saying we've got to make sure we have our options open in all ways possible, just in case. A lot of different interpretations here, but Nick, what is your reaction to this?
Well, I don't want to overreact. I don't think Dave Tepper was saying they expect Cam to miss the season, and I don't think anyone should expect Cam to miss the season. He was kind of speaking hypothetically, and then right after he opened the door to Cam missing the season, he tried to close it a little bit, saying like, well, we're not saying that's going to happen, but the reality is Cam Newton had shoulder surgery last year. He then injured his shoulder in week 6 this year and then got it really injured on that TJ Watt hit and was never the same after that. They need to learn from the mistakes made in the Andrew Luck recovery. And whatever the most cautious process is, whatever the steps need to be, not skipping steps, not rushing back. And if that means Cam isn't ready for training camp, then Cam's not ready for training camp. Like Cam Newton, we know that he has the ability to be one of the very best quarterbacks in this league. We also know that, as we saw last year, that if his play falls off, the team falls apart.
And that's what happened last season.
That is 100% what happened last season. And so Cam took a lot of criticism late in the year, but we now know he was dealing with a significant shoulder injury. I don't think they have a contingency plan. Like, if Cam is to miss significant time, Taylor Heineke's not the answer. You're not in a position where you're going to spend a premium draft pick on a quarterback because you have Cam. You're not going to spend big free agent money on a quarterback because you have Cam. So they're kind of in a holding pattern, but I would execute extreme caution because he still has another 6 to 8 years left in his career after this coming season.
I think Andrew Luck's a good example. I think him and Andrew Luck both 29 years old. So it's relatively, you can compare the two. He's a few steps before Andrew got into the situation that he ended up at because there might have been a misdiagnosis with Cam. He had a procedure done this last year, and he was rehabbed and ready to go. But typically, do you have some type of setback? And he had a couple big hits. The one from Watt was significant. That did change his season. I'm sure it changed his body. And then covering the league this year and spending some time with Cam doing one of his games, I know that he spent an extensive amount of time with the training staff and the medical staff. It got to a point that Cam appreciated them so much that every Thursday night, Cam was having a meal catered to the medical staff because they were spending so much time on him and on his body. He did that out of. So I knew that there was a problem long before that. I don't believe that there is a solution moving forward. I do believe that Ron Turner, the quarterback coach, Norv Turner, the offensive coordinator, and their relationship with Tyler Hinkie going back to their days in Minnesota, they do have a lot of time invested in him. He's a little undersized, started 4 years of college, so he does have some experience at the pro game. He does have a big-time arm, even though he doesn't look like it. So I don't look for them to potentially look for someone to replace Cam for the season. I think they'll be very cautious in going about it, but you have to realize too that Cam has one of those big contracts. So when you have one of those big quarterback contracts, you're limited as far as what you can do. You can't go out and get someone like Nick Foles, what they can do in Philadelphia, because Carson Wentz is still on his first deal.
If we learn that he will indeed miss the season, does that change what you guys think their options are? If we learn that, you know what, they're going to sit him out for the whole season, then you don't want to have the season as a wash, but do you try to find some cap room to bring at least some veteran arm in?
Listen, I think it is. I think it's incredibly unlikely that we would learn he's going to miss the full year until we are into the year. I think if he hasn't played by week 7 and they keep holding out hope, he's on the PUP list to start the season. And then, but to take the hypothetical that they'd say in training camp he's having another.
Well, they didn't have to say anything yesterday, and they did make a comment.
Absolutely.
Well, but you have to understand too that the owner, this one is his first press conference. He was a minority owner with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but owning the team, this is all new to him. So I think that as he owns the team, he'll get better at the press conference. Because as Nick said, he didn't have to say that. But I give him benefit of the doubt. He's new at this. and he'll learn how to, massage it a little more before saying certain things like this, before people were like, wow, Cam Newton might miss the whole season. I'm sure if you asked him today, he wish he could have that part of the conversation back.
But to answer your question, if Cam, let's just say, has a major setback or something to where if before the year they realize he's going to miss the season, I wonder what the Teddy Bridgewater market is going to be. And I know it's the third rail a bit, but given who this owner is and his relationship with the political climate in this country and him being the new age owner, I wonder if this would be the one team that would maybe give Colin Kaepernick a tryout. And that would say if Colin, even 2 years out of football, if he could come in and at least compete with Taylor Heineke. But I don't think you have a lot of options, because any quarterback that's available is going to want a multi-year deal, and the Panthers are not in position to give any quarterback a multi-year deal when they have Cam Newton.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point as far as cap. I don't think you're just throwing it in there, because if you look at it, if they do the same thing they did with Eric Reed, they were down several safeties and realized, wow, they had him on their board as a potential player. When the safeties end up getting hurt, they needed him, so they went to their board. His name was right there on the board, so they brought him in. Yep. And the stance that he had made for the anthem, it wasn't part of the conversation in talking to the coaching staff. It was about football. And right now, if Cam has an injury, is there a guy that is Cam Newton-ish that has played in the league? None better than Colin Kaepernick. So if they do have the same board, if they're still getting their players the same way I know all these teams get players, then Colin Kaepernick's name will be mentioned in this offseason with Cam Newton and watching his rehab.
And the only reason I brought up the political side of it is just the new owner of the Panthers has publicly feuded with the president. And so we know that the president has had negative comments about Cap. That, I think, had maybe a chilling effect for a lot of the owners that are tight with the president. With Dave Tepper, that would almost have the reverse impact that it might for a Jerry Jones or a Bob McNair, the late Bob McNair, who had close relationships with the president.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, talk some Cowboys. Can Jason Garrett bring a Super Bowl back to Dallas? He'd have to stay there in order to do it. That is next on First Things First.
It's looking up. Tyler Hinkey was the Old Spice National Player of the Year in the state of Georgia.
I did not know that.
Did not know that either.
Old Spicy got it. Okay. Recognition.